Welcome to Zinnov Podcast, where we bring you conversations with eminent industry stalwarts and thought leaders from across the globe as they share insights on shaping the future of enterprise growth, AI, innovation, transformation, and more.
One leadership habit you had to consciously develop.
Listen more and talk less. I always have something to say, and it will never stop. I mean, I will be working on that till the cows come home. My wife says the same thing. If you could just talk less, that would be great.
What mindset do you believe will matter most for leaders?
So the mindset of old, and I know what old means, the mindset of old is you take what you did yesterday and try to incrementally improve it today.
I think Jeff Woods' book describes an AI-driven leader probably the best, where you think about AI not just as a automation tool, but as a collaborator in your thought process.
Jason, what's harder today, speed or alignment?
I don't know if you've seen the movie, the Brad Pitt movie, F1. There's a scene in this movie where he's talking to the crew and he says, like, okay, I need you to take 1/10 of a second off of what you do. I need you to take 1/10 of a second off. And by the time we do all of that, over the course of 70 laps, it's the difference between last and first.
David, what's harder to maintain at scale, culture or clarity?
Well, I've mentioned culture lots of times here, so I'm going to stay consistent in my theme.
One principle that has stayed constant for you even as the company evolved.
Well, let me see now. I think I'll go with culture.
Jeez, like having a new answer.
Jason, one word you hope people use to describe your leadership style.
I'm not going to say culture. Look, I think for me, it's about approachability. That was it. One cut, we're done, huh? Woo!
Hello everyone, welcome to another episode of the Zinnov Podcast. I'm your host Ravi Darbha, partner at Zinnov. I have with me today Jason Day, CEO of StarRez's, and David Meale, President at StarRez's. Welcome both. Thanks for joining me today.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks.
Looking forward to it.
To set context for our listeners, Jason, many of whom who may not know what StarRez's is and what they do, can you briefly explain what the company does?
Sure, absolutely. Look, StarRez is the leading provider of student housing software worldwide, focused on helping universities and colleges manage their journey, the student's journey, through that housing process. We know over the last 30 years in working with higher education institutions that, similar to Maslow's hierarchy of needs, housing is critical to the success of students on campus. What we've learned is that their experience in housing impacts their GPA, it impacts their mental health, it impacts their retention and their graduation rate, as well as how they engage as an alumni. And so our focus in that period of time, and as we go forward, is ensuring that institutions are delivering a world-class experience for their students on and off campus so that they can achieve the outcomes that they're after.
So from your perspective, how do you describe StarRez to someone encountering it for the first time?
Yeah, I think the easiest way to describe StarRez is when I do that 30-second elevator pitch, for instance. It's like a hotel system for student beds, although we focus on the student experience. So if you look at it, our mantra and our mission in life is all around building thriving residential communities. So over the past 30 years, we've been working in collaboration with our community around the world to build out a world-class system that they need to manage student accommodations. So if you look at executive leadership at higher education institutions, they have a couple of top-line priorities that they look at every day that keeps them up at night. And we can support some of those. So some of those priorities include the student wellness, student success, retention is a big win, and these all fuel financial stability for the institutions.
The one thing maybe I would add to what David said around kind of what do folks maybe not understand about StarRez and the product that we're offering is that, as David mentioned, there's a number of different issues and concerns that higher education institutions have. And one of those, in addition to what David described, is the well-being and the health of their staff. It is a massive undertaking to manage thousands and thousands of students coming through their campus into that housing, living in that housing, and building that community that creates a really complex environment for the staff. And so not only are we focused on helping the students succeed, but we're also focused on helping the staff do that efficiently, so that they can spend the majority of their time kind of staring into the eyeballs of the student, the reason why they really got into the role.
No, absolutely. And I can empathize with the importance of a platform like this, because you are providing the mental well-being and the setting for them to actually do really well in their academics. So it's really important for them to be part of this.
That's exactly right. It's a critical asset.
It is.
Well, there are studies out there that say, if the student is happy and successful, then they stay and they tell their friends and they spend more money on campus.
Exactly.
And at some point, they become donors for their institutions.
Absolutely.
So true. We went through some work. You can find it on our website. We do an annual study on the state of student housing. And one of the statistics that we found is that GPAs are actually higher.
Exactly.
Based on their housing experience. And I mean, you can't ask for a better outcome for the institution. GPA higher, graduation rates higher. It's tremendous.
Correct. Which is exactly the point I was getting to. I think it contributes to the collective success of the society.
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely.
For sure.
So you stepped into the role of the CEO after holding senior leadership positions.
Mm-hmm.
What changed most for you from how you were operating earlier?
Yeah, I think for the last probably 10 years of my career prior to becoming the CEO here at StarRez, I've predominantly held go-to-market, sales-oriented roles. So my focus has been around the growth and the acquisition of revenue for SaaS software companies. And obviously that comes with a broad range of activities, whether it's marketing, whether it's pipeline build, whether it's sales execution, whether it's customer success, et cetera. The shift as I stepped into the CEO role here at StarRez was actually really the opportunity to take a broader view of the cross-functional areas within StarRez and begin to partner with what I believe is to be an exceptional executive leadership team at StarRez, but to be able to partner with folks like Matt Baumgartner in product and technology, or Brendan Daly, our chief customer officer, in driving forward the business more broadly, outside of just the acquisition of revenue, thinking more broadly about the strategy, the product roadmap, and how we're going to evolve this business, over the next 3 to 5 years.
Yeah, sort of like integrator in chief.
Yeah, exactly.
So you've seen the company evolve over time, right? And what are the most meaningful changes you've witnessed across StarRez?
Yeah, I think, when I started back almost 23 years ago, we had the majority of our customers, the bulk of our customers in Australia and New Zealand, and we had a small handful of teammates who managed all that, right? We always had a process and culture and customer success orientation. But I think the biggest change and improvements came when we brought on Vista. When we brought on Vista, they brought a different rigor to that process, customer success, and cultural orientation. They've got a consulting practice that helps us to take what we had and take it to a whole nother level through their best practices. I think that's probably the biggest change and improvement we could have seen at StarRez, and we were eager to get into it because we've always been striving for perfection and making sure the team has the right tools, the customers have the right software to be successful.
StarRez has gone through multiple phases of growth. Mm-hmm. What has been the most important shift in your company and how it thinks about the future?
Yeah, I think for us over the last 4 years, I think David referred to, Vista and that investment 4 years ago and what it did to inflect our business and how we think about our business. And I think one of the big changes that we made is this idea, and we all know it, of like go slow to go fast. And that seems very counterintuitive in a hyper-growth company, in a SaaS software company. But what we realized is that by going slow, analyzing our processes, redefining those processes so that they could then perform at scale, even in some cases unwinding ways that we've done things to rebuild them back in a way that we can operate at a pace that we had never operated before. Same thing on roles and responsibilities. I think we all know in companies in their early stages, it's a jack of all trades, or somebody wears multiple hats. But as you start to build out a business for scale at real pace and at real growth, you have to get really clear about the roles and responsibilities. Because once you do that, then you can turn those teams loose to be exceptional at what they do. I remember when we started with Vista back in 2022, coming into the go-to-market area of the business, we had account managers that were within our go-to-market organization that did everything from selling features and functions and solutions to our customers, to doing renewals, to providing customer support. We're smiling because we remember those days very vividly, doing customer support, helping with escalations, et cetera. And when you ask the account manager, like, how did you spend your time? 20% of their time was spent on selling, and 80% of their time was doing all the other stuff that they were being asked to do. And we had that across a lot of functions in the business, and to step back and say, okay, great, we're going to create an account manager that just focuses on creating value within our customer base and helping to drive the penetration of our product. We got real clarity, and we got the ability to scale at a much, much faster pace.
I think what we're able to successfully do is build the moat that is truly successful, how it differentiates you from your competition. And as you scale up in a more pragmatic way, right? I think that has been very effective and positions you as the market leader you are today.
Oh, that's true. I mean, you talk about the moat, and the moat is so critical as you think about not just software today, but if you think about the value and the potential that AI has on that software, the data that we capture as a part of our platform really creates a moat in our ability to service our customer and to help them on that journey with students.
So as the organization has scaled, what do you think StarRez has become better at, which it wasn't strong at earlier?
Sure. I think the rigor is what we've done really well at doing. Not only split, I think leveraging what you just said, once we split apart and we broke up the role and responsibilities of our team, we were able to offer much better service to our community. So we took it, customer service and team orientation up to another level. But as far as this goes, I think growing and scaling, and then one other specialty, and that's integrating outside companies, acquired companies, into the StarRez family became another specialty that we became super, super good at.
So in your experience, Jason, what's the most underestimated when building technology that people truly depend upon?
Look, I think that folks underestimate the amount of cyber, data security, redundancy, protection that you have to build into mission critical software solutions in order to appropriately provide those solutions to your customer. It often is an unsung item. You don't get credit for it oftentimes in the court of public opinion. But it's a tremendous focus for technology companies in ensuring, just given how much data is created in this world and how much data is needed, in our case, to manage that student housing process and that information about students, that amount of security and data protection and cybersecurity is just underestimated.
No, that's predominantly true, right? And we have seen that it's not just the product that drives the organization, but the ecosystem that powers the product.
That's right.
Often they are the unsung heroes. Thank you for pointing that out. Yeah. So, David, what leadership challenges only emerge once a company reaches a certain scale of maturity? And I think you are at that intersection right now.
We are, really, for sure. I think actually we hit that intersection 4 years ago when we brought on an outside investor.
Yes.
And because we've been in the market, we had been for 30 years at that point. We didn't know what we didn't know. So we get into it with Vista, and I think one of the other mantras I think we live by is that culture is king. And I'm a big believer that our team and our community, our customers, they come to us and stay with us because of our culture. So that was a big concern when we brought in an outside party. But we realized that we can keep our culture. You just have to be super intentional and have executive leadership that intentionally makes moves and spends money and takes action to keep your culture, which I think we've done really well.
Yes. And I think that's a great insight, because one thing that unites the entire academic institutions across the world is a unified sense of purpose and culture, which there are large set of similarities across institutions, right? And that being the cornerstone or the center part of your growth strategy is really spot on.
I think it's so true. Our customer community is really that differentiator for us. The higher education space is very unique in its DNA, and in that it's not highly competitive. If you think about it, university to university to university, they're not competing per se like corporations are or retail stores are, et cetera. And so it's a very collaborative community. They are willing to come together and talk about best practices. They're willing to say, hey, this is how we do this at XYZ University. Just replicate it over here at ABC University. And you can actually just take my data, my details around it and go do that thing. And it creates a collaborative environment that's just very, very unique and very, very special. And, it's for us, it's unmatched. And for us, it manifests. We have a user conference every year called Global Connect. And, this last year we reached over 1,000 attendees at that conference. And that just goes to speak to the collaborative nature that this community has. They want to get together. They want to learn together. They want to share. They want to network, et cetera.
So StarRez operates in a private equity-based environment.
We do.
How has that shaped the way you think about long-term decision-making?
Yeah, look, for me, private equity in itself hasn't really changed the way that I think about long-term decision-making. For us as a business, we've always been focused on our customer and the value that we deliver to our customer. And that hasn't changed. It didn't change when we were founder-owned and founder-led versus when we came into the private equity world. I think what in that process and staying true to the way we think about that, what's been key for me is partnering really closely with my private equity stakeholders. And that's not just me, that's our entire leadership team, to make sure that we're aligned on how we're growing the business and how we're nurturing this customer base. I think we can all agree that customers are the key to long-term success in a business. And the more that you can nurture that and build a strong customer community, it drives customer retention. It drives the ability to increase the spend within that customer. It's critical.
I think you're able to successfully integrate them into your culture, but also leveraging the strengths of what they can bring to the table.
Absolutely.
So I think cultural integration is the key mantra that's driving your strategy.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's a big piece of the way that we think about bringing those businesses in, incorporating them into our teams, making not only the employees of that company, but the customers of that product feel like they're a part of the StarRez family.
So from where you sit, right? So as of today, how has that long-term mindset that Jason spoke about influenced the way the organization shows up both internally and also externally to your customer?
Yes. I think I agree with Jace. We've always had sort of a long-term mentality around growing the company. So the rigor that we put in basically with the funding and resources that we were able to afford pre-Vista, now just materialized and gave us the opportunity to not only look long-term, but we were able to invest in the resources that helped us to fulfill that dream. So just communication, the rigor around data and security, and the same things Jason just mentioned, they're all just coming true now.
So I know this question is not as part of the list, but
Hey,
I'm still curious. This is an important question. Yeah. So what's exciting for StarRez for the next 5 years? What are you planning to, what keeps you up at night? What's exciting? What are you looking forward to?
Look, I think the growth opportunities that exist in front of StarRez today as a true student housing platform globally are a bit unlimited. I think we still have tremendous opportunity to acquire new customers onto our platform to support those customers, those communities, those students in their housing journey. We're excited about geographic expansion. We have, as I think David may have mentioned earlier, but if not, we were originally an Australian-based company that expanded into North America and then into Europe, and we're excited to continue that expansion into broader mainland Europe, into broader Asia Pacific regions and countries, but I think that geographic growth is a tremendous opportunity. I think probably the area that excites me most is about continuing to build out the student journey, both on campus and off campus. For 30 years, we've been focused on that on-campus student journey. How do they come into the university, live, and then move out of the university upon graduation? And with an acquisition that we made last year with a focus around off-campus housing, we're all about bringing that student journey into that off-campus opportunity.
I think one way to go about and be excited about that future is also to build capabilities across geographies,
100%.
Which is what you are doing right now, right? So as this has done globally, how do you think about leading teams across geographies and cultures?
Look, I think the key to global leadership is good, solid local leadership, and ensuring that you build very, very strong teams in the local market that can execute and operate very, very effectively. That only works if you have really good communication and alignment. And I think that's probably, the number one key is how do we communicate? How do we create alignment with those leaders to ensure that we're executing the way that we want globally? I think maybe the last piece for us, because we're a great example of it here in Hyderabad right now, is that I think it's also key for leaders to be in those geographies. I think it's important for our Hyderabad leaders to be in Denver or in Australia with our teams. It's important for our North American leaders, our Australia leaders, our EMEA leaders to be here in this market. I think that type of collaboration, that type of cross-pollination is key to success.
No, absolutely. And I think that's the essence of building strong teams, right? And as you build these strong teams across, in a distributed rather than a centralized model, right? Because now you are expanding to multiple geographies. What are your key learnings in building that sort of resilience and strength?
Yeah. I always lean on culture.
Yeah.
I'm a big believer, obviously, from what I said already. But I also agree with Jace. The communication, bringing in strong leaders, local leaders, is the way that we typically approach growth. We're not looking to transplant someone from the UK into Hyderabad to build this operation. We want local folks who know the culture, who know how to, work with the local community. But I think the way that we recruit talent, the way that we ramp up our talent, and the way that we bring them into the StarRez culture matters. And I think we'll just continue to get better and better at that. And I feel like this is our latest example, our Hyderabad office, like Jace was saying. And I feel like we've been highly successful. We have our executive leadership commitment to have a regular cadence of travel here and immersing ourselves into, the team and the spirit and building the culture that we feel like will help us scale the business and make everyone happy. You want to be psyched about what you do when you wake up in the morning every day.
Yes. And being a Hyderabadi, it couldn't make me happier, than seeing you guys here, right?
Sure.
So India has become an important part of StarRez's global journey.
It has.
And how do you see the role of global capability centers evolving for technology organizations such as yourself?
Look, I think global capability centers are going to continue to be critical for technology companies like ours. But I think what companies should expect of those global capability centers should and will change. I think historically people think about global capability centers as being a technology-only focus area. But for us, we're passionate about it being very cross-functional. If you look at the team that we have here in Hyderabad, it's not just about product and technology resources. It's about customer operations resources. It's about implementation resources. It's about go-to-market resources, whether they're SDRs or Salesforce administrators. It's about finance resources. It's extremely cross-functional. well. And so we've taken the approach of the GCC being an office, a StarRez office, no different than we think about a UK office or the Melbourne office or the Denver office that can support that cross-functionally. I think maybe the one shift that will occur as we think about time, and I think we all know this, is how GCCs begin to leverage AI in the work that they do. I think we all know the saying of like, it's not AI that's going to take your job, it's somebody using AI that's going to take your job. And I think that applies here as well. I think as we think about AI driving efficiency within our operations internally, whether it's how we use Copilot to support efficiency in code development, or how we use AI to deflect customer cases or escalations, et cetera, within customer success. I think the same principles and adoption has to be done here, where the teams are thinking about leveraging AI in the same way that they're thinking about leveraging it in our other offices.
Looking at the journey so far, how do you personally define success today compared to early on in your career? And if you can put an AI spin on it as well. I'm really interested to see how to define success in the era of AI.
Maybe I could put my answer in AI and it would say it better than I'm going to say it. Look, I think for me personally, early in my career, success was seen as like my personal progression. Like, was I moving up in an organization? Was I taking on roles of greater and greater responsibility? I think probably in the last 10 years, maybe even more than that, maybe last 15 years, success for me has been much more focused on the growth of the people that are working with me in the organization. I'm most proud of sales folks that have grown into sales leaders, or, directors that have grown into vice presidents, folks where I've been able to coach them up in their careers. And, maybe they've left companies that I've worked for and they've gone on to others, and then they can then begin to influence and grow others. So I'm now much more interested and focused on the development of teams and the health of those teams and how the folks in our organization are growing.
I can't tell you how well that resonates with the institutional philosophy of students, and how they come together across multiple years in their journey towards collective growth as a sign of leadership.
I mean, it's so true. I'm a computer engineer by degree, but I am not a computer engineer. And I mean, that comes from people pouring into me, helping me grow and helping me to identify what I'm most passionate about. And I think about all the engineers that are upstairs. Yeah. There are probably 20% of them. They're not going to be engineers. They're going to go into sales, or they're going to go into, support, or they're going to go into other areas. They're going to go into management. And I think that's all about, developing the careers of students and employees.
What does doing the right thing look like for a technology company as it grows in influence and responsibility?
I think doing the right thing is something you do at the early stages, in the middle stages, in your any level of maturity. Doing the right thing is a good way to measure if we've got a good cultural fit on our hands. So I don't think that's really going to change at all, but it's around being honest and hardworking and trustworthy, and own your movements, own your output. Fess up when you make a mistake. We all make those. We've had a number of folks starting with StarRez who come in with a very different experience in their lives, where they feel like they have to be outwardly aggressive and stomp their feet and pound their fists to get what they need. But it's really, they learn very quickly, because they've got the right heart and because they do the right thing inherently, that they can let their guard down at StarRez. You can just be yourself and contribute as a human, with friends who have the same, mission in life, to serve our team and to serve our community.
Awesome. And this is a question for both of you. I really would like to hear both your perspectives on this. What mindset do you believe will matter most for leaders building technology companies over the next decade?
Yeah, Ravi, it's a good question. It probably actually plays more to your question before around, hey, talk about AI. Look, I think David and I would both agree that as you think about leadership and technology leadership, especially going forward, I mean, it's about an AI-driven mindset. I think Jeff Woods' book describes an AI-driven leader probably the best, where you think about AI not just as a automation tool, but as a collaborator in your thought process, something that can help you validate, something that can help you identify areas that you weren't thinking about. And so I think this idea of using AI as a supporter in that process is going to be critical for leaders going forward.
And I used to feel like, I feel now like AI is your teammate. It's now your buddy who's going to help you to further your position. So the mindset of old, and I know what old means, the mindset of old is you take what you did yesterday and try to incrementally improve it today.
Yeah.
But now it's all about rapid change, adaptability, in my opinion. And you can't come in today and just think you can incrementally change the world. We can actually significantly change completely how we did it yesterday and move on to a whole new frame of mind for growth.
Okay, so with that, we get into the fun part of the session today, which is the rapid fire round. Sorry for putting you on the spot and asking some of these questions, right? So Jason, one leadership habit you had to consciously develop?
Look, I'm not done developing this habit, but for me, it's listen more and talk less. I always have something to say. And as a leader, especially among a very high-performing leadership team, I have to learn and consciously remind myself to not speak. Especially as a CEO, you learn quickly that when you speak, it takes the oxygen out of the room. It can take collaboration out of the room. It can take just the idea sharing out of the room. And so I have to consciously continue to work on listening more and talking less, making space for my senior leaders to do what they do. And so that's been a big one for me. And it will never stop. I mean, I will be working on that till the cows come home. My wife says the same thing. If you could just talk less, that would be great.
So David, this question is for you. One leadership habit you've had to consciously unlearn?
Yeah, I think we were just touching on it a little bit earlier around AI and how that changes your mode of operation. So I think the unlearning, the days of trying to iterate on what you did the day before is over. Now we try to reinvent, look openly at all the problems you're trying to solve to get to the next step.
Awesome. Jason, what's harder today, speed or alignment?
Look, I think alignment is harder than speed. I don't know if you've seen the movie, the Brad Pitt movie, F1. Have you seen this movie yet? Yes. There's a scene in this movie where he's talking to the crew, the race crew on that Apex GP team. And he says, okay, I need you to take 1/10 of a second off of what you do. I need you to take 1/10 of a second off of what you do. I need you to take 1/10 of a second off. And by the time we do all of that, over the course of 70 laps, it's the difference between last and first, right? That's the story that he's telling. And I know on the surface, it seems like speed, but it's actually not about speed. It's about, as an organization, we are aligned on what we're going to do. Once we're aligned, then you saw it in the pit stop, speed happened. And so I think the more critical thing is creating that alignment. Once you have that alignment, speed comes. That's not the issue, because you are all 100% myopically focused on the outcome that you're aligned around. So that's my view on it. I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah, no, I feel the same way, and I love that movie. I thought it was, and that was an impactful part of it when he was going around the room saying, because you could go around your dev operation, your customer operations, and you could use that language and that mode of operation with every department.
Oh yeah.
So David, what's harder to maintain at scale, culture or clarity?
Well, I've mentioned culture lots of times here, so I'm going to stay consistent in my theme.
Yeah.
I think culture, if you get your culture right, clarity is much easier to get right.
Jason, one lesson from earlier in your career that still guides your decisions today?
Yeah, I think for me, ego will get you into trouble, especially in leadership. I think that as we think about, no matter where we are in our career, we should always be in a constant state of learning. It doesn't matter the role that you're in. I mean, David mentioned it with regards to AI earlier in the podcast, where he's talking about like that's a mental shift that we've had to make as older leaders in technology in that AI journey. And so I think just having a mindset of continuous learning and making sure that no matter the success that you're having, that your ego doesn't get in the way is critical. I have so many scars from where I did not do that right early in my career. Even to this day, I can visually see people, I can visually see situations where I just wasn't where I needed to be in that regard. But that's, I think, critical.
David, one principle that has stayed constant for you even as the company evolved.
Well, let me see now. I think I'll go with culture.
Jeez, like having a new answer. David was able to prep easily.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, no, I still believe I have all my life, and I feel like I landed in the right industry because of this mindset. So I think it serves our team, our community, our investors, absolutely the right way. So I'm going to go with culture.
No, thank you. Jason, one word you hope people use to describe your leadership style.
I'm not going to say culture. Look, I think for me, it's about approachability. I think I really value, folks feeling, people within our organization feeling comfortable coming to me and talking to me at any point in time. It's hard in a remote work environment to have an open door policy, but I want to create an environment where no matter role, no matter where they sit in the organization, they feel like they can speak up and be heard. I'm a huge proponent, David can attest to this, and anybody here in the Hyderabad office for us, that when I have an all hands with my organization, I'm almost insisting that people ask questions. You have to ask questions. This should be a safe environment for you to raise your hand, learn something that you don't understand, or ask a question that you want an answer to. And so I think that's all about approachability. Even as you get into hierarchical organizations and you get larger and larger, I think breaking down those barriers by being as approachable as possible is critical.
And I think you've conquered approachability.
Yeah,
I really do.
Probably want me to dial that back a little bit. Don't be so
I really
approachable.
do.
Yeah.
I think you've conquered it, and it leaves a very open, like everyone puts their guard down when they talk to you. They know that they can be honest and forthright, and it really helps.
Yeah, it does. Yeah.
And I think that sort of approachability creates that openness when you're engaged with your customers as well. Right?
Mm-hmm.
I think they really start feeling that this is someone I can partner with and I can trust with my data, my problem that they expect to be solved.
Agreed. 100%.
Absolutely. David, last question. One word you hope people associate with StarRez in the long run.
Well, all of this leads to trustworthy. That's my word, is trustworthy. I want folks to trust me with the same kind of transparency, openness. And so, yes, I choose trustworthy.
Awesome. Thanks a lot for joining me today and really sharing your insights. A couple of things that really stood out for me. First is strong culture is the cornerstone for the success of StarRez. And I could see that how passionate you are about culture, building it, integrating it as you grow and scale. Culture is the king. That's the mantra that drives StarRez. And it seems to be working out really well because you are the market leader in your segment and it really echoes with the customer problems that you're solving, right?
Great.
Yeah. And the second thing is, I really like your point about AI, how it should be seen as a collaborator rather than as a solution for automation that organizations. I think that's a very pragmatic way of actually leveraging AI to drive organizational strategy.
Yeah.
But thanks a lot, Jason, for sharing that insight.
Yeah, you bet, Ravi. We appreciate the time.
To our audience, thank you for tuning in and hope you enjoyed the conversation as much as I did.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Zinnov Podcast. Stay tuned for more such interesting episodes. You can listen to our podcast on Apple Podcasts, YouTube, Spotify, or any of your favorite streaming platforms.